Awesome. Lance, welcome to the show. How are you?
Hi, good. I'm happy to be starting the new year and happy to be joining you guys on the podcast. Thanks so much for having me.
My
Unreal,
pleasure.
man. First and foremost, I just want to say thank you for coming on. I admire the work that you do for Bay Street Bull. Ever since I found about the platform, found about you as like one of the driving forces behind it. We've grown an admiration for the work that you've done with the features that you've covered, mission critical, like the podcast and the type of guests that you have on. So we really want to talk about the work that you do, how brands and businesses can get involved. So yeah, we're very excited to have you, man.
Thank you. Thank you for the kind words. I appreciate it. I'm excited to be chatting today.
Yeah.
Amazing. So, as an icebreaker, I have a few questions for you.
Mhm.
One, you're a self-proclaimed carb lover. What's your favorite carb and why?
Oh God, I love all carbs. But I mean, I'm Korean, so rice is definitely has to be up there. But I have to say that pasta is like, I can always eat pasta. It will always, there will never be a day where I won't want to eat it. And bread too. I just like them all.
It's so
But
reliable.
pasta for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Pasta is so reliable.
My partner actually just recently bought himself a Christmas gift over the holidays, and it's a pasta maker. So now he's
Wow.
doing
Oh my
it
God.
from my kitchen, and it is very indulgent and honestly just a wonderful delight.
That's amazing, man.
Yeah,
I'm a pasta lover myself. I love bread as well. I used to
I
like
just
do
love them all.
once I went to my first Italian restaurant and saw that they dipped bread in oil. I was like, what is this? This is
Was it
amazing.
olive oil?
Yeah, and olive oil. So I
Olive
just started
oil.
doing that at home all the time. I just started, oh, this is
This is nice, man. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So now let's talk about your early days. You were an intern at Sharp Magazine. Was that your first entrance into digital media?
It was my first entrance into media in general, actually. I went straight to Sharp from university. So I was interning while I was at university. I went to university not for journalism, but for business. And part of our requirements to get our degree was to secure an internship. And so that's the internship that I had pursued when I was in school. And, our school had set us up with a lot of their business contacts, and none of them really spoke to me. They were really very big corporations like Walmart and stuff. And I was a marketing major. And so it just never appealed to me. And so I wanted to find an internship on my own. And that's how I landed at Sharp and Toronto in general. And so I did that while I was in school. Then I went back to finish the rest of my degree. And then I came here right afterwards. So it was pretty much back to back.
Amazing. So, what were some of the highlights of working at Sharp? Because I think that was kind of the ascension of you into the digital media world, right? So, what were some of the highlights that you learned that you can impute into our listeners?
For my internship programs, or like while I was an intern, or as just working there in general?
I would say working there in general. After you got there, after you landed the position there, what were some of the things you learned at Sharp that, really structured the way you approach media today?
Yeah, I mean, I think it was obviously it was my first experience working for a media company in general. And so I learned a lot from my experience working there, and everything from working with publicists to understanding the editorial planning process, social media. I mean, at that time, and I'm dating myself a little bit, but like at that time, social media was just starting to be used as a business tool. And so part of my internship requirements was that I had to write a research paper on a topic that would be of use to the internship company or to the company that I was interning for. And so I did that on social media because that was like the early days of Instagram and Twitter, and really when businesses were starting to leverage those social media platforms as a business tool. And so I learned a lot there about, building community and just, yeah, I mean, everything from top to bottom, just in terms of how a small media company functions. And I was really intentional about trying to find a company that was a little bit smaller in size,
Mhm.
because it was very clear to me that, especially in media and marketing, these big companies, they look great on a resume, but how much do you actually really get out of those internship experiences? I did not want a, go and grab me a coffee kind of internship experience. I wanted to make sure that I was able to develop and come out of it with a well-rounded skill set and a well-rounded roster of contacts as well. So I learned a lot from that experience, and obviously that was Sharp specializes in fashion and luxury lifestyle, and so it was really a good master class in understanding your community and understanding your brand. And it was really an extension of my marketing degree, because it's, these are all things that I learned in school that I was able to put into practice.
Going into Sharp, like what would you say like your strongest asset you had coming into as an intern? What did you tell them that you could offer them? And leaving the internship, what other new skills did you gain from that you took onto your next opportunity?
I don't know if I offered a ton of stuff while I was an intern, to be
Yeah.
honest. But as I said, like, my research paper was on social media. And at
Mhm.
that time, there weren't a lot of companies that were, or there, that was just something that companies were just starting to embrace.
Yeah.
And so maybe that was kind of where I was able to be of use in that, that's the reason why I was hired back, was to help handle their social media at the beginning.
Yes.
And so I wrote the research paper from my internship. I was able to provide a business case for using social media. Obviously, nowadays you can't launch a brand or a business without having a social media presence. But back then it wasn't always that obvious. And so creating a business case for it, and understanding the ability to, cultivate communities and your voice was something that maybe I was able to offer that they didn't have anyone assigned to at that time.
Most definitely. And I'm curious, how did you correlate social media to magazine sales? That must have been a challenge back then without the social proof of the past. Because I know in corporate, they're always looking at past data. Hey, what's a year on year on X, Y, and Z, right? So what were some of the ways you correlated value when you were just starting there? And how do you correlate value today? Do you still look at metrics? Or that'll be part two, but I would love to hear your answer to the first part.
I mean, how do I correlate value? I mean, it's like any other business. It's not even specific to media companies.
Yeah.
Effectively, your content and your audience is kind of your product. And so you are able to use social media as a way to amplify your content, as a way to reach out to your communities, as a way to build stronger relationships with them and cultivate them. I think before, especially in media, there was this kind of there was like there were a lot of gatekeepers, and the access to editors and people that worked inside media companies was very, very limited. And so this really opened things up and allowed editors and brands to speak directly to readers. And it just offered a little bit more of an intimate feel where you could have conversations and you were also able to get feedback, and that feedback was better was used to better inform your business decisions. So amplification, cultivation, and the ability just to understand your brand and your audience better, and I think that still continues today.
Most definitely. Now, pivoting to Bay Street Bull, for people who don't know, what kind of magazine is Bay Street Bull, and what can people expect from reading the content?
Yeah, so we started Bay Street Bull. Well, I didn't start Bay Street Bull, but Bay Street Bull started off as a print publication. Now we are leaning less towards describing ourselves or using magazine as a descriptor, because we don't want people to see us just as a print product. We really define ourselves as a multimedia platform. And so we have a print product, which is a big part of our business model. We also have our digital platform, and then we also have events, experiential. That's something that is a big part of our business model, and making sure that we're able to have, before COVID, one-on-one one-on-one interactions with our audience and at events, and be able to facilitate one-on-one interactions between our advertisers and our audience. And then this year we also launched, or a little bit earlier last year, we launched a B2B arm of our business, which is effectively being able to white label and create content for other brands that are not under the Bay Street Bull banner. So we define ourselves as a multimedia platform that focuses on the intersection between business and culture, because we really saw that there was a rising culture around entrepreneurship and around building business that was not covered as much as we thought, there could be coverage. And so we wanted to build that bridge out of the silo of just entrepreneurship and be able to connect that with culture and really acknowledge the fact that people are very diverse in their interests. Someone that's in finance could also be interested in fashion and food, and someone that's in fashion could also be interested in food and finance. So we wanted to acknowledge that people are very well-rounded in their interests and be able to offer a destination where people were able to consume that kind of content.
When did you and your team launch Bay Street Bull?
So I've been at Bay Street Bull for 5 years, I think. I can't even tell. Time just works differently for me now, but I think around 5 years, maybe 5 or 6 years. But before I joined, Bay Street Bull was around for maybe about 8 years before that. So it's been around for a little while, and it's gone through a lot of different evolutions. Our current publisher, who's also the owner, bought it from the previous owner. And so when he did that, he wanted to restructure it. It was more of like a trade publication back then. And then he took it over. And then when I joined a few years after that, wanted to use my experience at Sharp to cultivate it into more of a consumer-facing lifestyle business hybrid. And it's just been an evolution since then.
Amazing. And what have you learned from growing the business? Because right now you have a different elements in the business with the one-on-ones, with the events, with, the print product. So how have you been able to handle the, I'd say the, unapologetic market, because consistently moving. So how have you been able to steer clear in those waters?
The unapologetic market. I mean, I guess, do you mean like a volatile kind of industry?
Exactly. Yeah. That's what I was looking for, a volatile industry.
Yeah. I mean, I think one thing that has always remained true for us at the publication is that we've always been a very, very small team of people. And that obviously has its limitations in terms of capacity and resources. But the biggest benefit of having a team that is oftentimes 8 people or less is that you're able to make quick decisions and be very nimble and agile. And so when it comes to an industry and a market that is as volatile as media, you're able to react quickly, and it doesn't take you, there's not a huge chain of command that you have to go through for an approval process to make decisions. You can just turn around in your office and ask your coworkers, what do you think about this? Let's do it. Let's see what sticks on the wall, and go ahead with it. You're able to recover from your mistakes pretty quickly too. And so I've been of the belief that, being a small business has given us the ability to be very agile and nimble in an industry that is always changing, that is always throwing you curveballs. And so being able to react and being able to foresee and predict those changes and being able to prepare for those changes has really helped us navigate the volatility, because there's definitely a lot of volatility from a macro industry standpoint. One being from the shift from print to digital, things like COVID, the pandemic, how that's affected media consumption and production, to micro things in terms of handling your relationships with your advertisers. There's something new every day. So being a small team has allowed us to really be able to act quickly, and I don't think that that's something that is as easy to do in a large organization and a big kind of corporate organization.
Bay Street Bull, from looking from the outside in, living here in Toronto, it's like a Toronto-based media publication. it being based out of Toronto and focusing on Canadian entrepreneurs, how do you attract readers that are not familiar with the Bay Street Toronto culture and etc.? And do you just plan on keeping it as just as a local Toronto Canadian type of publication? How do you attract different audiences from different like countries and etc.?
Yeah, I mean, Bay Street obviously has its, or Bay Street Bowl definitely has its brand built into a geographic location, being, you know, Bay Street, the financial district of Canada. But, you know, one of the things I quickly realized that a lot of Canadians actually don't even know what Bay Street is. So we've never really put all of our eggs in that basket, and really wanted to make sure that our brand represented the culture of business, and Bay Street being a symbol of business. But we've never limited ourselves to just focusing on businesses on Bay Street. In fact, a lot of our businesses are outside of Bay Street because, you know, a lot of our coverage ends up talking about startup founders and tech entrepreneurs, and a lot of those are not located on Bay Street. So we really focus on talking around the culture of business, leadership, and the pursuit of success, however you define success. And I think that that is something that resonates with people across the board, whether you're Canadian or American, whether you're from Toronto or Vancouver or Calgary. And we want to make sure that we are very inclusive in our coverage and making sure that it's not just Toronto businesses that are being covered. We have distribution outside of Toronto. We have distribution across Canada. And so we need to make sure that we're recognizing and acknowledging our audience outside of Toronto, and also just not contributing to the stereotype that Torontonians are self-obsessed and that's, you know, it's Toronto versus the world. So we want to, and as a person that did not grow up in Toronto, that is very important to me. And so I think those geographic boundaries are less defined, and really the core of it is talking about everyone's journey to achieving success and how they define success. And so one of our mandates is really to highlight Canadian businesses, but not for the sake of doing so. We want to highlight Canadian businesses because they're some of the best businesses in the world. And so we also have American businesses that we featured. We had Ariana Huffington on our most recent cover. We had Whitney Wolf Heard from Bumble, Gary Vaynerchuk. So we've had a lot of American entrepreneurs, but we always want to come back to, you know, focusing on Canadian success stories because they're some of the best ones in the world, and because there aren't enough people talking about Canadian businesses in the bigger picture.
Most definitely. Hold on, I just gotta address that real quick. So there's a stereotype of Torontonians being a self-obsessed.
You know, they call it like we got a screw face mentality, bro.
Well, that's something different, because that's more like being, you know, standoffish. But being self-obsessed is a bit different. I didn't know that Toronto had that stereotype.
No, you didn't. Well, I mean, maybe that speaks to. Did you grow up in Toronto? Maybe that speaks to growing up in Toronto.
Shout out Scarborough.
Yeah, I mean, I think for people that live outside of Toronto, certainly when I was growing up, you know, I grew up in Alberta, but I think it was just like there was this idea that Torontonians were just obsessed with themselves or only cared about themselves, and they were the center of the universe, basically. You know.
Really?
But I don't know if that's necessarily the case anymore. I mean, I've lived in Toronto for almost 10 years, so maybe my perspective has been skewed a little bit, but yeah.
Oh, I didn't know that. Okay, cool. Now you touched on a lot of important topics. Man, I gotta find out where to go. What I find interesting with, you know, the new landscape of media is working with brands now. Because it's hard to, not hard, but you got to be a lot more creative, I feel, in the collaboration process and delivering value. How have you found that brands are receiving value in your experience working with brands through your own influencer campaigns with Mr. Lance Chung on your Instagram account, or on the Bay Street Bull, or with the Glory Media?
Yeah, I mean, every brand defines, I guess, value in different ways. For us as a company, we really want to make sure that because we're a small company, relationships and solidifying very strong relationships are extremely important. I think being able to build those long-term relationships have been probably, you know, it's one of the biggest reasons that we've been able to see any kind of success in cultivating relationships. So I think it depends. I mean, from a strict advertiser perspective, being able to deliver on what they're trying to, what they're trying to deliver on is important. You obviously want to get the right audience in front of their brand, whether that's a luxury brand or whether that's a timepiece consumer or a scotch drinker or a car enthusiast. You want to be able to make sure that you're able to deliver the right audience for them and be able to help them grow their audience. But outside of that, I think it's really about making sure that you are communicating with your brands, being authentic and being sincere. And just, I think, making sure that every conversation you have with them is not sales based or revenue based. You want to build a relationship that is two ways and make sure that everyone's happy. And for us, offering to, if it's an American advertiser, offering to provide any insight into the market that they may not have because they don't have any boots on the ground here. So if they're opening up a new store, offering advice in terms of, okay, if you need any intel on, what's an area that you should consider opening up a store and what's not a good area that you should consider opening up. That's something. Connecting people with other leaders or decision makers in the community, just being of value to an advertiser or a brand is really important, and making sure that not every single conversation is sales based, because that'll get old and it'll just feel very transactional, and that's not how you build a relationship, not a long-term one at least.
So like, for example, like new brands, I mean, smaller businesses who are coming into the mix, they want to approach let's say a fashion brand or like a liquor brand. They want to partner with these different, and you're talking about building a relationship, a long-term relationship. For small brands, small businesses looking to cultivate that relationship, there's a sort of timeline they have to, they have an objective at the end of the day is to partner with them. What are some relationship cultivating techniques that you could tell our audience? You're a small company, you want to approach a big brand to work with. What are some methods and techniques to go on about building a relationship the right way when you don't really have time on your hands because you do have a business to build out? What has worked for you, and building that relationship with brands that might not be in Toronto, that might be outside of Canada? How do you cultivate that relationship and nurture it where you can actually drive it towards making that sale and getting that partnership?
Yeah, I mean, I think one of the biggest mistakes that people make when it comes to building relationships, whether or not that is with a brand and a media company or an intern with an editor, or applying for a job, I think the biggest mistake is that people often try to showcase their best qualities and why they think that they're a good fit for a company, or why they think that their media brand is a good fit for the brand. I think, and that's good. That's definitely not something to miss. But one thing that you have to do is empathize and understand and put yourself in the other person's shoes and understand what their goals are. And so if you're a small media brand and you're trying to approach a luxury watch brand, for example, as an advertiser, you need to put yourself in their shoes and understand what they're looking for and what they would get out of working with you, not in terms and not see it from a perspective of you, why you think that they're such a great brand. Like, they know that they're a great brand. They know that, I'm sure that they're getting tons of pitches all the time. And so you need to be able to identify what it is that they're looking for and be able to communicate why you're able to deliver that. And so if you're a luxury watch brand, obviously you'll know that if you're trying to pitch to one, you'll know that they want to make sales. They want to make, more introductions into the marketplace that you're in. They want some sort of value. So understand what value you can provide to a brand versus why you want to work with the brand. It's a subtle distinction, but I think it's an important one, because even in the case of an internship, we go through a lot of applications, and a lot of the times an intern will say, I want to work with you because I've always loved your content. I love doing, I've always wanted to pursue a job in media. I always, I love the business landscape, whatever it might be. And that's great. But if you're competing against a bunch of other people, what would make the person on the other side of the table care? And so you have to be able to communicate your value and what you're able to deliver on, and make sure that those values align with the brand or the editor or whoever the job hire, what they're looking for. And so I think that's the most important thing, is understanding what people are looking for and how you're able to deliver on it, and how you're uniquely able to deliver on it that your competitors aren't able to do, or that they haven't gotten a bunch of pitches for. And so one good way of doing that is, if you have history being able to do that and being able to deliver, then build up some case studies and deliver and showcase quantifiable metrics that showcase your ability to deliver on, whether it's impressions or sales or connections. Align yourself or deliver communication around your ability to align yourself with leaders in the industry. Things like that. It's not rocket science, but you do have to put your mind in the shoes of the person that you're pitching to in any scenario.
I completely agree. Our case studies are huge, most definitely. Also, reviews. I want to throw that in there as well. Reviews from past people that they've worked with, because knowing that another person had a great experience with you can be a good testament to and motivated to work with you.
Testimonials are really important. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. I'm curious, do you find yourself pitching more towards agencies or internal operators that want to work with media brands like yourself?
We do a mix of both. It's multi-pronged. So we focus on efforts are really just on tackling as many different decision makers as possible. And it's not the same across the board. Some brands handle those decisions internally. Other brands outsource that to agencies. So we do a mix of both. Got you.
Working towards wrapping up, I know I want to be respectful of your time here.
We got some time.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Yeah. Awesome. All right. So with COVID-19, you've pivoted the business to have a lot more of a digital presence, creating, the digital covers. And by the way, that cover with the Aboriginal man, that was
mint.
Chef's kiss.
Yeah, I know that. We were talking about that internally last week on our production meetings, and it's one of our favorite covers that we've done. And obviously the visuals are so important. And so the photographer, Norman Wong, he took those photos for a TikTok campaign, and they just were so vibrant and beautiful, and just imbued so much energy and emotion through that photo. So yeah, it was one of our favorite ones for sure.
Got you. Now, a lot of, we have a diverse audience. A lot of entrepreneurs now have to have a media front end and business back end because of the nature of COVID-19 and the nature of having an online presence. You need content on the front and the business on the back end, right? You've seen that yourself, correct? So now that you've had so many years in media, what do you see small entrepreneurs doing correctly, and what do you see them doing incorrectly?
Small entrepreneurs doing correctly. I mean, I think it's really just important to understand who you are as a brand, establish what your mission is. That's the core perspective of our podcast, is understanding, like, at the core of it, at your foundation, what's the ground beneath your feet that you are looking to build upon. And so if you want to build a brand, what is that built on? Is it built on values around sustainability? Is it built around values or around diversity, whatever it might be? But understand who you are and what is your point of view. I think even when we get a lot of pitches for editorial coverage, there are a lot of people who pitch for the sake of pitching, but don't really know what they're really pitching other than their own company. But there's no point of view, there's no perspective. And so I think that's really important, especially today, to have a set of values and a point of view and perspective that you stand by and that inform the decisions you make as a company, both internally and externally. So whether that's from your hiring process to your editorial coverage or the type of products that you might produce to the way that you interact with consumers or readers, it's really important to have those basics covered, because if you don't know who you are, then how are you supposed to know what you're selling or what kind of community you want to build or what kind of company you want to build? So I think that's the most important thing, and not trying to do too many things at once. I think it's better to do one thing very well than a bunch of things in a mediocre way. So focus on, a handful of core objectives and doing those in the best way that you can and delivering those the best way you can, because you can't do everything, as we've learned. And I think lastly, there's this discussion that I have with a lot of founders and entrepreneurs around the difference between progress and perfection. And I think as small business owners, as entrepreneurs, people are always wanting to put out the best first impression, and that can really hinder progress. And so I think one of the things that I've really learned from our interviews and from our own experience internally is just put it out there and build on it and scale it up and iterate on it, instead of waiting for the perfect time or the perfect product to put out. Because if you feel like your product is perfect by the time you put it out, it's too late. And so you don't want to miss out on any windows of opportunity because you just didn't feel like it was perfect. Yeah. And that's really important.
You have different brands, sub brands under Bay Street Bull. You got Mission Critical now. You also have like the 30 and the 30 list that you currently do right now. What are some new, sub brands under Bay Street Bull that you guys are planning on launching in 2021?
I don't know if we have any
overall, like coming up.
Yeah, I don't know if we have any new products or series per se that we are planning on rolling out in a similar sense to Mission Critical and 30 by 30 and stuff like that. Not any that I can share just yet, but I think for us, a big focus is to really continue to cultivate our existing products and our existing series and communities and sub products and sub communities, and make sure that we're doing those well. We're nurturing those because we've worked really hard to build those up, and we want to make sure that they continue to sustain themselves and they continue to build communities and expand. So for us, Mission Critical podcast, I mean, we have 12 episodes of that so far, and it's become a big priority for us internally as a business objective to continue building on that. So we're going to continue releasing episodes of that. We have our 30 by 30 guide, which focuses on talented young business and cultural leaders. We have our Power 50 series, which is really the 50 businesses and people that are shaping Canada. Women Who Lead is a really important sub community and I guess kind of sub product of our brand, because we wanted to, the reason why we started that one was twofold. One, because people always perceive Bay Street Bull as a men's publication or as a men's media brand. Maybe that's because they associated with Bay Street in general, which is, so we wanted to make sure that we communicated that we were not a gender focused publication. We are not a magazine for men. We're not a media company for women. We're a media company that focuses on the pursuit of success. And obviously, regardless of your gender, that can apply to you. So Women Who Lead. With that being said, we do want to acknowledge that women are disproportionately represented in business, that women do not have the same experiences as men in business. And there's a lot of work that still needs to be done there. So we created Women Who Lead because we wanted to give more space to talk about and celebrate female entrepreneurs and leaders. So that's a really important series for us. It's a weekly series online, and it's also an entire issue that we dedicate in the fall towards celebrating stories around female entrepreneurship and success. And then one of our most recent ones is How I Did It. So we've done 2 guides on that so far, and it's just kind of end of year wrap up on how various entrepreneurs or businesses have surpassed a significant milestone and are impacting communities. So those are our sub brands for now, and we're looking to build, but we don't want to bite off more than we can chew. We don't want to do something unless we can do it well, and being able to nurture it. And as I said, we're a small company, so we only have so much capacity. We have 6 people, I think, on our team right now, 6 or 7. So there's only so much we can do as well. It's a capacity issue. There's a lot that we want to do. But at the end of the day, you can't have one person handling a million things, and you can't prioritize everything, because then nothing becomes a priority. So it's understanding your pace and cadence as well.
Yo, Alex, I think you're mute, man.
There you go. Sorry about that. Yeah, I definitely think that you have a lot to chew right now. You have a lot you're chewing. Yeah. One thing I actually wanted to highlight, and just to give you kudos, is that you've taken it upon yourself as a company to highlight Black-owned businesses as well. Could you shed some light on the decision to highlight all these companies that you've done? Because I know, like, I saw Spencer Badu, shout out to Spencer, he was on the podcast as well. Also Carlin Purcell, and a maker for Melanin Woman as well, or Melanin Girls, I believe, MFMG, who's also on the podcast. So
Rebecca, yeah,
I would love to get your insight into the decisions that you made there, because it was definitely intentional, and I would love to hear more.
Yeah, I mean, you're absolutely right. It is a very much an intentional, conscious part of our decision-making process. For me, I'm the majority of our team consists of people of color. And so we really wanted to make sure, from the beginning, one of our core pillars and mandate is to make sure that we're highlighting diverse stories around success, and making sure that stories around success, make sure that we are showcasing the fact that there's more than one face to success. And so as a team that consists mostly of people of color, that's always been a very, very important mandate of ours. Obviously, with the Black Lives Matter movement and everything that has happened in 2020, that is something that we've really wanted to build further upon with our content that speaks specifically to BIPOC content. And so, yeah, I mean, we want to make sure that we're highlighting stories around, Black business excellence, around people who are working in business and in culture, and making sure that we're also consulting with people in the community to make sure that we understand what's happening on the ground too. We have our hands in a lot of different buckets, because we focus on a lot of different topics, from lifestyle to tech and business, and we can't always be the experts on everything. From tech coverage, we look to institutions and organizations like Mars and Ryerson DMZ to understand, and consult them to understand what are the companies that we should consider looking at. And so in the same way, for BIPOC focused businesses and individuals, we want to make sure that we're consulting with other leaders in the community. We've spoken with Wes Hall, who is also, great. We've done a lot of interviews with Masai, and just,
that was my favorite, Lance. That was my favorite. I'm a huge fan of Masai.
I mean, he's just incredible in general. And so, and just making sure that we are very conscious. I think it's easy to get caught up in the day-to-day things. And I think it goes back to understanding what your values and your mission, and what your mission is, because that should be what informs your decisions, big and small. And so when we're thinking about our covers, it's very, very conscious internally that we make sure that our print covers across the board feature a diversity across gender and across people of color and everything. So we want to make sure that not every cover that we put out is a straight white man. We want to make sure that we have women there, that we have women of color, that we have, men who are people of color too, that people that can talk to different experiences along their pursuit of success. And so, Yeah, I don't know if I answered your question, but that is basically,
No, you did.
it
Oh
is a
man.
very conscious thing. And we're very conscious of, when we're receiving editorial pitches and when we're reviewing our content calendars that we are representing, you know, all the communities that we can, especially BIPOC communities. And, we can definitely do more. What we just recently did actually was on our website, we carved out a specific section at the top of our website that says BIPOC, just to allow our users ease of access and navigation towards that specific content. And so we just want to not only make that content more accessible and more easier to find, but also just increase our coverage around it too. So there's always more work that we can do.
One thing you brought up that was very interesting is you brought up it several times actually, was the art of the pitch and pitching you correctly, right?
Mm-hmm.
So let's run through this real quick, because we're about to start pitching brands. We're about to start pitching publications. Because we're about to drop our we actually recently dropped something called BWBU, Black Women Bossed Up, a podcast playlist highlighting Black women in business. Showcasing everything you just mentioning, being a woman, what their story is like, how they are exuding excellence in their business, right? And now we realize that it's super important that we highlight Black men in business, right? How can I go about pitching that? Actually, should you do like a mock pitch? I think that could be even more fun.
Yeah, sure.
You guys think? Yeah.
Let's do it, man. Live.
What would you pitch media? And I think it's important to understand that not all media is the same. People obviously have different audiences and communities and perspectives. So it's not a one solution fits all kind of thing. You do have to curate and tailor those pitches. But what would you pitch us?
Okay. Freestyle off the top of my head. All right, let's do it. Pressure on. So, dear Lance, how are you today? I want to bring this to your attention. We are releasing a podcast playlist called Rapper Go to the League, a podcast playlist highlighting Black men in business exuding excellence in their individual life. We think you should be promoting this and having a story on this because it showcases Black men in Canada and the US that are showing excellence in their business. We've had some excellent men, one including Pierre Laguerre, who raised the highest amount of money you can publicly raise using Republic. We've had O'Shane Howard, who is featured on both Vogue and GQ twice. We've had SB Badu, who's been on The Bay, and Essence, and a lot of other men who are showcasing excellence in their business and exuding a positive image in our society. So it's a heartwarming story. It's a story showcasing entrepreneurship in 2021, and I would say deviates from the current narratives that are being portrayed on Black men. So I think you should write about this story. What do you think?
Also add something there too.
Oh yeah, go ahead.
Oh yeah, I'd finish it up with knowing what Bay Street Bull does, covering entrepreneurship and celebrating entrepreneurship. Your audience is primed for such a content like this. Recently, you featured covering Black-owned businesses, having a podcast playlist featuring Black women and Black men. I think this will bolster your content even more towards what you're doing with your current mission on featuring BIPOC businesses. And I believe this is a great collaboration, which represents great synergy. And I would love to talk more about it if this interests you. So I'll add that at the kicker right there because it ties in his. Yeah.
That's good.
Yeah, I think you guys definitely got a bunch of things right in that pitch. I think timeliness is really important when it comes to pitching, making sure that it is a part of a conversation that people are already having. If it's not, then something that's a little bit more evergreen, something that people may be looking up regardless of the time of year or what's happening in culture. So that's one thing which is good. You've made it, you've curated it towards what we focus on, which I think is really important and speaks to, empathizing and understanding and putting yourself in the shoes of the person that you're pitching and understanding why they would want to do that. So aligning with an audience that is focused on entrepreneurship and leadership is really good. I think one thing that you could, maybe build on is
Hold on,
you're
hold on a quick second.
creating
You're
a
stumbling a bit.
list
Lance, can you hear me?
that you've created yourselves. And so you're established. And so, I don't know if we cut out there. Sorry, can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Yes, you're good. You're good.
So I'll just start over. So one thing that I
Yes.
think you could continue and build on is that you're creating a playlist and you've curated a playlist of podcasts. And so you're implying that you are experts, subject matter experts. And so what I would want to learn more about is what makes you a subject matter expert, what you have as an authority on that topic that would lend credibility to the editorial pitch that you're pitching. And so give me reasons why, you are the leaders that can speak to this kind of content, whether that's your involvement with the community, whether that's your coverage of the community, your understanding of it, things like that. So just give me a little bit more context on who you guys are as a brand and why you're the voice, why people should listen to you, and then just how that aligns with your overall values and mission as well.
Yeah, you didn't include that. That's so obvious. This is right there.
It's right there.
It's right there.
Yeah.
You know
Honestly, it is it is very simple, but it's not always easy. So especially when you do this a lot, it's easy to kind of go back to basics. And so even when you're doing pitches, like maybe carve out a checklist and be like, okay, spoken a little bit about ourselves and why we're the experts on whatever we're pitching, why we lend credibility to that, what we can offer in terms of our, how our voices offer value, and how they align with the person that you're pitching, and their audience, and what they're looking for, and how it's timely or how it's, evergreen content.
What do you define as expert?
I think having a very thorough understanding of your community or your subject, whether whether that's informed by a lot of time in the field. So maybe you've been an entrepreneur that has built several businesses over the span of 10 years or something, like you have a track record of that can speak to success, and a track record that can speak to your ability to execute on what you pursue. Maybe expertise also speaks to if you have, I don't know, an education in or like a specialty in a certain area through like a PhD, or you've written books around it. Anything just to kind of help support what you're saying. And it doesn't even have to be a formal thing. It could be like you've been, you have a podcast that you yourselves have been running for the past however many years, and you've built up these relationships with the community. And this is the content that you focused on. And so that just through experience has built up your, I don't know, did we cut out again?
Yeah.
Where did we cut out in? Where did I cut out on?
You're talking about
geez, that was like a mid statement, so I couldn't even like make a
talk about being an expert.
Yeah, exactly.
I would say when it comes to establishing
you cut out, sorry to cut you off. You cut out around the podcast. When you mentioned podcast is exactly when you said we cut out. So it's like you're mentioning because you've interviewed a lot of you've had a podcast interviewing a lot of people, and you have networks in that community, then you started cutting out.
Yeah, so I don't think that expertise always has to be a formal title or a formal degree that speaks to your expertise. It could also just be experience. If you have a podcast that speaks to your content matter and you've been doing it for a while and you're able to build a community, then that showcases the fact that you built a community, you understand your community, and you understand the subject that you're talking about. And I mean, that helps as well, for sure. So just being able to communicate that you know what you're talking about, and that you have a little bit of credibility and something to back it up.
Got you. No, that's solid. Awesome, man. I think that's a great note to wrap on, personally, man. Is there anything you did that we didn't cover that you'd like to cover? Actually, Mission Critical. That's been one of your latest projects that you've worked heavy
Yes.
on. I think it'd be a disservice to you if you didn't touch on it. What was it like having Michelle Rahman on the show? And what has been some of your top moments of the show?
Yeah, I mean, Mission Critical has been a lot of fun. I have to say that it was a little bit out of my comfort zone in the beginning because I'm not used to, the way that I interview people is not necessarily the same way that I would use a lot of how
You're cutting out one more
the
time.
hype paper and it's going to be put out into the universe in the same way through an audio format. And so that's really important. Oh,
Yeah.
did we cut out again? Oh, my God.
Yeah, one last time, man. Dang.
Did we cut out again? Okay.
So sorry, man. Yeah, just start from the top.
I'll keep that one short and sweet. I think from a podcast standpoint, it was something new for me, a little bit outside of my comfort zone. The way that I interview people for print and online is very different in the way that I would interview someone for a podcast, because you have to be much more aware of your ums, buts, all that kind of stuff, even though it's edited out, and make sure that you're able to have a nice flow to the conversation that you would otherwise be able to edit out in paper and online. But honestly, it has been such a great way to speak with people. It offers a lot more of an intimate conversation with people, and allows the audience to really get a sense of who we are as a brand and our voice, but also who we're speaking to. And we intentionally want to make sure that we're not focusing just on people in business, but people across the field that can speak to pursuit of success, but also what informs their decisions in terms of their mission and their values. I mean, that really comes down to it, is their values and why that's so important, and how their values are different. So we've had everyone from Michelle Romano and Arlene Dickinson to my from Never Have I Ever, which is a Netflix show, Dr. Ken Khan, who had infectious diseases. So it's a wide gamut of people that we've had. We've had Nick Nurse from the Toronto Raptors, and the common denominator is what has your experience been like building up what you've built, and what are your values that inform the decisions that you make. And it's been really, really, really great and interesting to see how they differ, but also how they're similar.
Most definitely, man. I heard a lot of great stuff on the Michelle Romano podcast. And I actually really enjoyed your Swish episode as well. That wasn't really a Mission Critical. That was more on your YouTube, though, on the BSB TV YouTube channel. So I definitely suggest that to check that out. We're working towards wrapping up. Is there anything that we didn't cover that you'd like to mention real quick?
No, I think we covered a good amount there. So, I mean, I'm just happy to be speaking with you guys today, and thank you so much.
Awesome. With that being said, ladies and gentlemen, the hustle is what you can't control. So control your grind and control your life. I'm Alex.
And I'm Owen.
And I'm Lance.
Hey. And that's the hustle over everything, y'all. Peace.
Peace out, guys.
Thanks, everyone.